It's been 1 week since the election. Hard to believe that 17 months behind us now. We're having breakfast with friends back in Pennsylvania because that was the state that really turned everything in Donald Trump's favor if you were watching at like 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and you can get enough from pundits here and elsewhere about what's happening. But we sent Abby Huntsman out there to talk to voters and get a reaction of how they feel about how the last week has been. Abby?
Good morning, guys. Here in Scranton, Pennsylvania, here with Pat, Wayne, and Ben, talking about life and politics. And Pat, you've lived here your entire life. You have been a Democrat your entire life.
I have been, and I just turned Republican this year when I renewed my driver's license. And so I felt that this country was going in the wrong direction. That's why I wanted to vote for Trump.
Well, a good man who has served in the Navy. And Wayne here, who owns a plumbing company, his van's outside. Your whole family's been Democrat. You decided to vote for Mr. Trump this year as well.
Yes, that's correct. My mom and dad, both Democrat, and my whole family, everybody, except for my wife and my children. And so, and my dad doesn't even know this, but I know my mom said she was going to vote for Trump, so he may know.
She didn't want to tell her husband.
She did not tell him.
You come from a big family, so a lot of stories here. We're going to keep talking about politics, guys, and we'll come back to you soon. But as you can see, a lot of real stories here, and you can understand why Pennsylvania ultimately went to Mr. Trump at the end of the day.
Indeed.
Right. And it's a stunner. And if Republicans are going to keep it, they got to have the right team together, and they have to have the right policies together.
Right.
Because Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania and Ohio all said, I believe in you, Donald Trump, which means putting his team together is going to be vitally important. They got to know what they're doing, but they also have to be somewhat outsiders.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's what the task has been over the last week. And that means a revolving door through Trump Tower, because if you want to be involved in the administration, that's where his campaign was. That's where the center of power still is on this transition. And these are a few of the names and faces that were spotted entering Trump Tower just yesterday, a part of a long list of folks being considered right now.
I love that. Well, Tommy Hilfiger, when he was I was like, what? Tommy Hilfiger?
He has an office in there,
apparently.
So he may not have been there for the transition.
So everyone's labeling this as chaos, things out of control, there's all this confusion. Yeah, there's a little bit of things ramped up, and I don't think everyone in the Trump organization actually thought they would win. But having said that, Donald Trump tweeted this out after reading some of these stories and watching these reports. He says, the transition's very organized. It's an organized process taking place as I decide on cabinet and many other positions. I am the only one who knows who the finalists are. Very similar to The Apprentice. Some other names that we can expect to see, of course, Secretary of State, is it going to be Giuliani? Is it going to be Bolton? You know, we hear that Pete Hoekstra, Frank Gaffney, and Devin Nunes will be deciding on their national security team. They are evidently struggling, according to Rebecca Mercer, who is a member of the transition team, finding people who are going to be effective undersecretaries right now. However, that means the top spot, there's a lot of contenders.
Yeah, we talked to one earlier. Tom Cotton, Secretary of Defense. Duncan Hunter we'll be talking to later on the show. A lot of names being floated for some pretty important positions.
4,000 people to hire, according to his transition website. We had Jason Miller sitting here on the curvy couch. He's an advisor to Donald Trump, and he said this about the transition.
I mean, ultimately, as they go through the list, we want to make sure that the people that are being put in place are going to be able to implement the president's agenda. And keep in mind, we want to come out of the gate strong. We want to repeal and replace Obamacare right out of the gate. We're going to come after the tax code and try to get some real reforms that are going to help grow jobs. And we have to secure the border. This is an absolute key priority. And so whoever is being put into these positions have the same energy and the fire as the president-elect to go and get this done. Otherwise, they're not going to be considered. And the thing to keep in mind with all these people that he's putting in place is that he has the judgment to make sure that the right people are being put in. And I think the American people are going to be very proud with who he picks.
Yeah, we asked Jason Miller about the process, how it's going, how organized. He said President-elect Trump knows what he wants to do, knows he wants to surround himself with good people. It takes time. But the New York Times, of course, as they love to do, this morning put out a headline about the transition process saying, firings and discord put Trump transition team in a utter state of disarray. That is how the mainstream media is attempting to portray the new Trump presidency just 1 week in as they make decisions about who's going to be in the White House with him. They're stacking the deck to try to make it.
How about the NBC report that said they're all over Donald Trump because he didn't tell the press he was going to go have dinner with his family? Well, he went to the 21 Club, which is right over here, a great restaurant. And a reporter from Bloomberg happened to be in the restaurant at the same time last night and tweeted out that picture. The press got so mad because they're like, he didn't tell us he was going to have a steak dinner.
Well, I mean, into the press's defense, that's what they do. I mean, that's what the White House reporters do. They're supposed to know what's going on. Hope Hicks was a text message, and she said
he can't just go and have one dinner without telling the press.
But evidently she said, I didn't know about it. I thought it was he was done for the night. So sorry.
But you can't say that's not transparent when they didn't care about the private server. They didn't care about the Benghazi emails. They didn't harass Hillary Clinton when she waited 200 days for a press conference. And NBC says in their article, with Tuesday night's actions, the Trump administration is shaping up to be the least accessible to the public and press in modern history.
You could say a lot of things about Donald Trump, but he is very transparent. He's very honest.
Well, yeah, he has calmed down on a lot of his press availability because he is going to be president of the United States. It's going to be very interesting to see. The one thing that is true is that Governor Christie is seemingly been demoted severely, and the people affiliated with him are not going to be getting out of the top jobs. And Mike Pence has gone out of his way to get rid of all the lobbyists on the transition team. Remember, that was a question from Wesley Stahl on Sunday, and Donald Trump said, well, that was the only people we had to choose from. That, I think on some level he was surprised by that because he trusted Governor Christie not to use lobbyists. He did, and that was what Mike Pence did. So I don't mind corrections because one thing about Donald Trump, he's shown during the campaign, he'll make corrections. He'll rotate out personnel, but he ended up with the right team.
Well, that's what leaders do.
And Chris Christie's under investigation for Bridgegate. Is that investigation still going on?
I'm not really sure where that's at right now, but it does not look good.
Right, you don't want to muddy the waters in the transition process. But speaking of that 60 Minutes interview, in that interview, Donald Trump defended his use of Twitter, saying, Twitter's a great modern tool for me. I'm able to fight back against the media that's so biased against me. Well, this morning on Twitter, he's fighting back yet again against the New York Times, tweeting this just minutes ago. The failing New York Times story is so totally wrong on transition. It's going so smoothly. Also, I have spoken to many foreign leaders. He's referring to that very headline that I just held up.
And what he's talking about with foreign leaders is the fact that they said foreign leaders can't get a hold of them. They call Trump Tower and hope get connected. That just doesn't seem to be the case.
So another tweet that he just tweeted out, he says, I have received and taken calls from many foreign leaders, despite what the failing New York Times says. Russia, UK, China, Saudi Arabia, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and more. I am always available to them. New York Times is just upset that they looked like fools in their coverage of me.
Bottom line is, he deserves the benefit of the doubt. Yes. Everyone that said he's not running a real campaign, he's running a television show. Everybody who says he doesn't know what he's doing with the ground game. Everyone who said that it shows chaos because he was rotating out people in charge were wrong. In the end, he rotated until he got the right people at the right time to finish up the backstretch strong. By the way, a leading Chinese newspaper yesterday had a great thing to say about Donald Trump in their editorial section, pretty much run by their government. They came out and says, we really feel optimistic about running with a Trump administration that's looking to the next generation of our relationship. And I thought to myself, wow, you don't have a state-run newspaper write that in the editorial section unless the government felt that way.
They feel like they're on notice, and that's a reflection of someone who's leading America from a position of strength.
There's a protest, and this was in Oregon. It was protest in Oregon where 112 students were protesting or were arrested. 70% of them, they were protesting Donald Trump. 70% of them did not even go to the polls to vote or are not registered. Steve Doocy has sat on this curvy couch. He said the day of the election, you cannot complain if you don't go to the polls and vote.
Yeah, exactly. And a protest is no longer a protest when you're rioting and therefore getting arrested. So let's be clear. A lot of these folks were rioters from out of town, and the 112 agitators, many, from organizations and others, 112 arrested, 70% didn't vote. It's so right. I mean, it turns out these are not things we say. These are realities on the ground. These are not just frustrated Hillary supporters. These are folks who are trying to cause a scene.
Well, Stephen tweeted us, and he said, too lazy to work, too lazy to vote.
All right, another email came from Jim about these college students. He says, when the parents of these little darlings stop paying for those lower educations, perhaps a reality check may set in. I'll offer the new course, Reality 101.
Reality 101. And Patrick tweeted, I wonder how they expected to change things. Magic? That's the question. What are you hoping to get out of this? Because we had an election and somebody won.
Yeah, I think that if I was writing a $60,000 tuition check over the course of a year or $30,000 a semester, and I found out that my kid had been in school a week because they were protesting the results of a national election, which he or she may or may not have voted in, I'd be outraged. There probably wouldn't be a second semester.
That's why people are saying, suck it up, Buttercup. Go to class. Go get a job. Go to class.
Yep.
Move on.
The world is not a safe space, unfortunately.
It is if you're Heather Childers, because she is in a safe space now.
She's an exception to every rule.
Do you feel safe?
They have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning like we do, because they keep me up. I can hear them protesting from my apartment.
Is that true?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you live near a Trump building? Is that why?
Columbus Circle. Yeah. They were protesting all weekend until 1 o'clock in the morning. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
Right.
you're in a safe space right now.
Yes, and we have some headlines, some stories that we have been following for you. We do begin with a Fox News alert for you. The Department of Homeland Security issuing a brand new terror warning for the holiday season. Officials say that the coming weeks could give terrorists opportunities to strike public events with large crowds. Right now, there are no specific or credible